get this show started.
All right.
We have Warlord Zander on today, and he will be going over Great Weapon for you. If you have questions, just drop them in the chat, and I will get them to him as we get breaks. Do you want me just to interrupt you as I get them, or do you want me to hold on to him?
Yeah, just interrupt me as you get them. That's fine.
And he's got his fetching handsome headsets on, so he'll hear us.
So I'm Warlord Zander. This is the SKBC Online Great Weapon Fighting class. Great fighting is one of those things that a lot of people overlook, and a lot of fighters don't think it's something that they need to know. Also, a lot of tournaments don't feature it, which is a shame. Great weapon fighting requires a lot of concentration and coordination. It can help you with force generation, opponent analysis, footwork, and just general fighting skills. The purpose of this course is I'm hoping that at the end of it, you will be able to understand the terminology. Hold on, my paper's going awry. You'll be able to understand the terminology, have a broad concept of the fighting style, and be confident fighting with a great weapon. So in this class, we're going to cover stances and guards, striking and blocking, and some minor footwork. And then I'm going to show you a couple of drills on the pedal that I like doing. So the first thing we're going to cover is stances and guards. If you've seen my polearm class or attended it at SKBC, the guards for a two-handed sword, or a long sword, as it's traditionally called, are very similar to the stances for a polearm. They were written by the same guy in Germany, Talhofer. He wrote the book on longsword, and then he wrote the book for Spear, the King of Weapons. The first guard that we go over is the high guard. The Germans call it the Ox. If you read any of the Italian books, it's called the window guard. For this stance, for the guard, you're going to bring your hands up to your cheek. You're going to have your blade at an angle, diagonal to the ground. You're going to have your right foot forward for your left stance. If you're going to be entering a left ox, you always use the term for the back leg. So a left ox brings your left leg back. You bring your handle to your cheek, basically, and your pommel and your hand guard up like that. Now, sucks to live on a main road. I need a gym to do this in. Now you're going to want the tip of your longsword, of your great weapon, to be around the upper chest to mid-chest area on your opponent. So from the front, it's going to look like this. From the side, from the back, from the opposite side. And then one of the main misconceptions for greatsword fighting is when you go from your guard on one side, a lot of people switch hands when they go to the guard on the other side. But what that does is it puts your cross guard on the inside of your forearm here. So traditionally, the way it would work is you would put your cross guard on your arm, and then when you switch from a left ox to a right ox, you cross your arms. So that all you're doing is switching your footwork and the angle of your body. So the ox is good for a lot of shoulder blocking. You can block your body and you can block your shoulder, all from the ox posture. And it's good for like lunging stabs and riposte to shoulder shot. So the stab that I'm talking about is the lunging stab. When you get into your ox, you can take that step and stab out like that. And that affords you a significant amount of extra range. From right here, if I were just to try and stab, I don't have a lot of range. But as I step and lunge, I mean, a lunging stab from Ox gives you approximately 2 feet extra range when you're doing it. The second guard that we're going to be going over is the plow. So stepping back from Ox, you draw your weapon to the middle of your body, and your pommel hand should be close to your hip. The tip of the sword should aim towards the middle of the gut, towards the lower chest of your opponent. And this is going to be your guard that provides a lot of your range control and a lot of your body blocks. So from your Ox, you're just going to drop your sword, and this is your plow. Like I said, this gives you a lot of your body blocks to the right arm, or to the left arm, to the right arm. It also gives you a lot of range control, because from here, I have to take that stepping lunge to get my stab in, but from the plow, all I have to do is move my hand. So you can range control a lot better with your plow than you can going from your Ox, from your high guard. You could do just a straight stab, and a lot of times if somebody is charging you, like if a shieldman decides that they're going to try and give you a real bad day, you can stop them from advancing on you by just throwing that stab towards the shield. Just like that. And that'll give them a little bit of resistance and give you a minute to try and reset your feet, get into a different guard, or use your footwork to get into a place where you can open up a shot for yourself. The third guard is the roof. Just like with a polearm, your roof goes from your Ox, and all you do is up and over your head. Same with a polearm. This is where your murder strike comes from. A modified roof, a lot of armor, if you're wearing armor for this, a lot of armor doesn't allow you to extend your hands all the way above your head like that. So they do what's called a modified roof, where you, where you rest your sword on your shoulder. So a roof guard is, like I said, where your murder strike comes from, and that allows you to do your very fast, very powerful chopping motion, right? Horizontal chop, murder strike. If you're doing a modified roof from your shoulder, that gives you a chance to, you get less power generation from it, but you get a lot more shot deception, I guess. It's harder for your opponent to see exactly where your sword's going to go when you're doing a modified roof, because you can take that step and chop towards their hip. Or you can take that step and just go straight down. Whereas from here, as you move, you telegraph your shot. You're doing a very powerful swing. You're doing a very powerful swing, but you're telegraphing your shot. Doing it from right here, all you're doing is taking a step, and your shots are a lot faster, if not more powerful. Do we have any questions on any of the guards?
Not yet.
Okay.
Is the footwork for those three were all the same? Is that correct? Just a basic sword stance, right?
Yes. So what you're going to do is, for your Ox or your high guard, you're going to have you're going to have 1 foot back with or 1 leg back with your foot perpendicular to your blade. So if you look right here, if you can see my foot, it's pointed that way. And then the other one with your point, or with the point of your foot towards your opponent, matching your blade. And that gives you a lot of power when you step off to do like your lunges. And that's basically the same for all of your guards. Your Ox and your plow specifically are going to be like that, because you're going to go from your Ox to your plow, and your feet don't change a whole lot. In fact, transitioning from ox to plow. I have an assistant. Transitioning from ox to plow affords you the opportunity to block a lot of shots to your offside. If I am in ox and she swings to my rib, all I have to do is transition into plow, and I've got that block. A lot of what you can do that they call master strikes are if, like, say I'm in ox and she swings to my rib. I can throw my body weight into ox at the same time as I'm throwing the shot. So go ahead and throw slow. So I'm transitioning into plow at the same time as throwing my shot, so that I have the blade surface to block her blade incoming at the same time as I'm striking her arm. Go ahead and throw slow. Like that. So you're going to transition from ox into plow as a strike. Now that's difficult to do, and I don't expect everybody to be able to do it, but it's definitely worth practicing, especially for the look on someone's face. When you walk into a ditch line with a great weapon, and you go up and post up in ox, and they immediately go for those ribs. The only one that's going to change is going to be your roof. Usually with your roof, you're going to have your body less canted away from your opponent, so it offers a lot more surface for you to strike, or for your opponent to strike, because you're going to be using a lot of force generated from your shoulders and your hips. You can't really do that like this. So your body's going to be facing a lot more towards your opponent. And then again, with modified roof, you're going to have the opposite leg forward. So for a right roof, you want your left foot forward, and you want it resting on your right shoulder. And that affords you I like to call it a bait of your shoulder right here. And we'll go into baiting your shoulder for a repost later. I've got that as one of my concepts. Did that answer your question, Noah?
Yeah, absolutely. Some interesting options that are pretty readily available. I hadn't considered. I've looked at that Tallhofer book before, but I'd never actually gone through the motions myself or seen someone do it. So it's much more interesting. It makes more sense when someone's doing the moves. Yeah. Yeah,
I really like Tallhofer, and I probably read that book like 4 times a year just because I love looking at all of the like master strike and different blade guards and defenses. My favorite shot to do with a great weapon is actually a repost from ox that I'll get into here in a minute. Actually, we're going to do striking, blocking, and reposting. My assistant just walked off, so we're going to do striking on a fell for right now. So there's 2 shots, basically, that I like to teach from every guard. The strikes that you could do from your ox guard are a flat strike and a lunging stab. So if you post up in ox, you're going to aim the point of your weapon to the upper chest, lower neck of your opponent. And then you're going to take that step and you're going to stab. And that's your lunging stab. You want to be able to push your stab and have it hit at the same time as your foot hits the ground. So from here, you want to take that step forward at the same time as you're throwing the stab. The foot hits, the stab hits. You can actually be a little bit farther back. And because of the change of orientation of the blade, especially against opponents who are using Florentine or a smaller shield, a lunging stab from ox is a lot harder to block than to say, if I were holding just a regular short sword and I went to stab, well, that's just a straight line because of the orientation of a stab with a short sword. If you're stabbing from ox, you're bringing your blade to a different plane and you're changing the cant of your blade up. So what started up here, go ahead.
So are you saying you're sneaking a sword side hip in those stabs? That sword side flank?
Basically, yes. Yes. Like if I were to turn this into a sword side hip, it starts off close to being the same motion almost. Because if I were to step and do a sword side hip, then that starts off, people are going to expect that as you do your stab.
Well,
Plus, if you're doing... Go ahead.
I thought maybe you were just stabbing to the sword side hip on a boardman.
No, so the orientation of your... Turn my buddy here. So if you're going from ox, you can take that step, and people expect, because your sword starts at a plane close to their neck and upper chest, that's where your stab is going to end. So as you stab, you change the plane of your sword by bringing it down, and you change the plane of your sword by bringing the tip up. So what was a stab from a tip down sword becomes a stab from a different angle with a tip up sword.
Okay.
You also, because it's a two-handed stab, you afford yourself a significant amount of tip control. Like, say they've got a big board and they're consistently leaving this little spot open, right? So you can start from up here and take that step Now, the other shot that you could do consistently from ox that is fairly easy is going to be your flat strike. And that was the one that I was showing you with that hip wrap. You're going to go from ox. You're going to bring your sword up. And then you're going to basically just throw in a horizontal shot. You can do that from both sides of ox. So those are your two shots from ox.
We have a weapon construction question. Do you want to hold those to the end or just jump on them right now?
No, go ahead.
So
go ahead.
How do you make your crossguard functional? So that was my immediate thought, was how is he not going to snap that?
So the crossguard on my longsword, if you can see this is a 600, I believe. It is a 600 fiberglass rod, a 6.600 solid fiberglass rod.
Oh.
And then what?
I thought that was PVC. That's a much more serious piece of equipment.
Oh no, the PVC is a sheath on the outside. So the blade is a 600 fiberglass rod that goes all the way to pommel. And then I heat up the T right here. I heat this up in a PVC heater that I have. You can also heat it up in the oven. And then I take a solid piece of 1/2-inch PVC and I run it all the way through. You have to heat up the T because there's little ridges on the inside that are designed to keep the PVC from running all the way through. They're supposed to snap into place. You heat it up and then run a piece of solid PVC all the way through the length of the crossguard that you want. And then I take a drill and I drill a 7/8 hole in the tip of my T straight through both pieces of PVC. And then heat bond my PVC crossguard to my 600 fiberglass, and then put my handle on over that, and it's all glued together. So, I mean, this thing will never break.
Yeah, that's
I say that.
Yeah, it's a much more serious construction than I thought you had there.
Yeah, no, it's not a PVC sword. A lot of people think that when they see it. It's going to get foam over the crossguard and plasti dip and everything like that. I decided to take it apart and rebuild it, and I just haven't gotten to it yet, so it sat as a blade for a long time.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, not right now.
Okay. So a lot of things that the blocks that you can do from your ox stance. Beth, you wouldn't mind? You might as well just keep that.
And she's just off screen right now.
Okay. Let's go out here past the cell.
There we go.
Is that better?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, you're on. Okay, so from ox, if they decide to strike towards your shoulder, you have your cross block like that. If they decide to block towards your offside hip, you have your bottom block or your left wall or right wall. And then if they decide to block towards your stomach, you transition to plow, and you can block your entire left side from plow. Like I said, you can also turn that into a master strike. Go ahead. And those are your preferred blocks from ox. You can also turn your offside block into a repost, which is my favorite shot to do with a great weapon. You go into ox and you bait that offside shoulder real hard. And when they throw for it, you throw your offside block straight into an arm chop. And you repost off of that. Go ahead. And you bring the momentum of their shot to basically give you extra momentum off the block onto their chop. You can even do it with a step. Go ahead. Right? As they're throwing, step, and into their meaty bits below their ribs. Go ahead. For the kill. A lot of what you can do also from ox is if they throw towards your sword side shoulder, which I don't know why they would, like if they're trying to tag that forearm, go ahead. You can throw that stab, go ahead, with your cross guard, block it with your cross guard, and stab into their upper chest area, as you can see, like that. You can take the step even if you're doing a lunge, go ahead. Using the cross guard of your sword, you can catch their strike and turn it into a stab all at the same time. Anybody have any questions on the finer points of reposting and turning a block into a master strike?
Not yet.
Great. I hope everybody's getting that.
Yeah, that's something that I've done hand-matched single sword, but I don't think it ever occurred to me to do that with a long weapon. Of course, my depth of experience with a long weapon is probably not where it should be.
So doing it with a long weapon requires a lot more practice. I can't say that. It doesn't require a lot more practice. It requires very specific practice, and it requires two people to want to cultivate the ability to use a great weapon, which then tournaments don't feature a great weapon bracket, and most IK tournaments, specifically like the clan tournament, don't even bother with great weapons at all. Cultivating the ability to use a long sword or a great weapon effectively has not been something Amtgard's seen in a long time. Pole more so, but great swords, a 56-inch traditional longsword like this, is something not a lot of people even want to fight with. They're considered antiquated. I like them a lot, though. Another thing that you can do from ox, babe. Another thing that you can do from ox is if you've got a sword and border who really loves trying to stick it to you, you can switch from your outside or from your left ox. You can switch to your right ox and really bait that whole right side or left side of your body, knowing that their sword is in their right hand. So it's going to be the easiest striking plane for them to get to. If I'm right here and I don't react, she's just going to eat up all of my bits. So what you could do is switch from your ox or your plow, from your left ox or your left plow, switch the orientation of your feet and go into a right ox, and then immediately throw a shot towards their hand area of their shield like this. And then when they go to exploit the now glaring weakness in your defense, go ahead. Yep. You bring your sword down as part of your shot. Go ahead. So from here, I'm just going to skip off. And that's the point, is you want to bait them into taking that step and throwing that shot. So you want to skip your weapon off of their shield. Go ahead. And then take a wide step out and take that shoulder. Go ahead. You could put a significant amount of force behind that if you heard her. That wasn't a very fast shot, but she did not like that at all. Sorry, honey. And that's one of the things that you can definitely do, especially against boarders, if they know the weaknesses of a great weapon, of a two-handed sword, or specifically more so if they charge you. If they charge you and they're moving in on you, like I said, hold on. Like I said earlier, you can throw that stab to stop their momentum and give you a second to reposture. You could do the same thing. You could do the same thing if they're moving in on you from the other side. You can throw that shot and arrest their momentum and force them to throw a shot to the only spot that they know is open. Go ahead. And that takes a lot of footwork and forethought. You're going to want to know exactly when you're going to charge, and you're going to want to know that they're going to throw that shot. Any shot to your left side, basically, is going to end up the same way, because as you come in and skip off their shield, any shot that they throw, as you reset, you're going to be blocking it. So you skip off their shield. Go ahead. Go ahead. You could take a wide step out. Go ahead. And snipe that arm as they're coming in too. A lot of great weapon fighters, they crutch on throwing that leg first though, and a lot of shield people know that a great weapon, a pole arm, anything longer than a short sword is going to capitalize on throwing that leg and arresting their momentum, limiting their mobility. So if they are coming at you at a low speed, if they're trying to assess how fast they can get to you without having to charge you, take a step forward, pump towards that leg, and then when they lower that shield, right, bring your whole sword back up, and then chop that shoulder. Go ahead. Sorry. It's all right. I do that to you, so now you block it. She blocked it because I did that shit to her for like 4 years.
So there's a meta game here. I feel like there's an arbitrage opportunity because there's so little longsword work. You have a lot of options to really confuse people who are making assumptions about what you're going to do.
You absolutely do. In fact, there's a video of me fighting with my man-at-arms. He's fighting with my Dane axe, and I'm fighting with the previous iteration of my greatsword that had a stab legal crossguard. Okay. And he took a step in and started to throw a shot with the Dane axe, which only has a strike legal surface of about a foot. And as he went to throw that shot, all I did was go like this and then push his sword up, or push his axe up. And when he went to reset, I swooped in and hit him with the crossguard. If you have the right greatsword, created the right way, and purpose built for fighting against these garters, you can do a lot of really dirty stuff like that. You could do from the roof guard, you could do just a little wiggle of your sword, and a lot of people will like juke to try and block because they know that as I come this way, down comes the sword for a murder strike. So if I've got my sword over here and I go, they're going to check themselves for that murder strike, and the shot comes from the opposite angle. So as you cross your sword, their shield goes over, anticipating the murder strike at the same time as your sword comes down the opposite direction.
I know we're skipping around just a little bit here, but I see you're doing some interesting things with your handhold in that top guard. Can you show us what you're doing there?
So in the top guard, I transition a lot depending on the shot that I'm going to throw. I will hold my hands everything from a saber on the bottom to a hammer on the top to a hammer on the bottom and a saber on the top to a double saber and then a saber on the bottom with my finger up like that.
So you're just using the guard as a trigger?
Yes, it's all just depending on how I want to manipulate or orient the weapon, depends on how I'm going to be using the handle. If you're going to be doing a lot of fast strikes that you don't need to be very powerful, I usually go with like a double saber. If you need extra power, like if you really, really need to throw the heat on a shot, you use a hammer on the front and the saber on the back. That way the saber gives you the tip control and the hammer gives you that like punching straight at the opponent kind of strength that you need to really put some heat on a shot. And then if you're going to be throwing like a block, or if you're going to be throwing a stab, I usually put my finger out. I don't know why. It's not something that people recommend because you're going to probably break the digit. I just got into the habit of it years ago, and I think it's because I like to point my finger at the person as I'm stabbing them. Helps me orient the tip of the sword, I think. Another thing that you can do with a greatsword that I love that you can't do with almost any other weapon is that if you pad your handle and like really pad it, you can use it as courtesy, and you can half sword with a strike legal pommel if you have enough stab tip. If you have, I think it's 6 inches with a stab tip on it, you can half sword if you have courtesy padding on the front. So you can take your sword and strike with your crossguard if you have it made correctly. I don't do that because I don't feel like hitting somebody with a handguard that I've been with a padded handle that I've been holding and hurting them. I would rather just hit them with a blade.
Sure.
You'll see my hands change a lot in all of my guards. You'll see, like I will go from saber and saber to saber and hammer, or hammer and hammer in a plow, because I'm going to be doing a lot of very stiff blocks, and I need that extra strength. If somebody's throwing significant shots at my left side and I'm in plow, I'm going to be throwing a lot of really staunch blocks at it, especially if I'm fighting a pole. I'm going to be throwing a lot of hard blocks. So I'm going to be using a lot of hammer and hammer hand positions on my handle. If you're doing a lot of finesse work, saber on the back end always helps a lot, gives you a lot of tip control. Let's see. We have strikes and blocks and riposts from plow. So just like the lunging stab on your ox, you have a lunging stab from plow. And you have vertical strikes instead of horizontal strikes from plow. From your left plow, you could do that same stab, take that step, and instead of coming from your ox and changing the orientation of your blade, you're just going straight into the stab. Which that is a significantly easier stab to block for a lot of people, because it telegraphs very well. You're basically just going from a sword pointed at your opponent to a sword hitting your opponent. And if you can't see the front of my Pel, he's got little notches here, and that's what I'm throwing shots at. When you're practicing your stabs, it's good to have a marker on your Pel somewhere that you want to have your shots landing on, especially stabs. And that's how you learn the tip control that you need to put a stab where you want it to be, is having a marker on your Pel, because anybody can throw a shot and have it wiggle and land anywhere. Especially if somebody is fighting and all you're doing is throwing a stab and you want it to land, but you don't care where it lands. Anybody can throw just a straight stab and have it blocked in and still hit the chest. Or if somebody's sword blocks it and it comes across the chest and still lands with enough to be called a good shot. But if you have marks on your Pel, you can learn to take that step and put that tip where you want it. So just like with Ox, you have your lunging stab from Plow, and that is just taking the step and moving the sword. Taking the step and moving the sword. You're pushing your sword into your opponent. You also have your vertical strike, whereas your Ox had your horizontal strike, your Plow is going to have your vertical strike. You're going to bring your sword point up to your chest and down. Sword up to your chest and down. You can also do your horizontal strikes, but they take a lot more time and a lot more motion to do them, because you could bring your sword point up to your shoulder and throw your horizontals, but bringing your tip straight up and throwing your verticals is usually a lot faster than having to orient your blade for a horizontal, especially if you're using a flat-bladed greatsword. If you're using an Omniblade, if you're using an Omniblade greatsword, most of your shots can come from most of your guards. It's just a matter of how you want to move your arms and move your body to get your blade there. But for a flat blade greatsword, knowing what shots you can throw from what stance and what guard is a lot more difficult. It takes a lot more practice, because you don't want to be in a Plow and bring it up for a horizontal and slap them with the flat of your blade, because that doesn't count. But if you're in Plow and you bring it up for a horizontal and you hit them with the side of your blade, that's the meat. That's where you want your sword to be. But it takes a lot more practice than getting your sword in, because with a Omniblade, you can literally just make the circle and anywhere that it lands, it hits. But with a flat blade, you have to bring it up and specifically orient the blade to where the non-flat surface is hitting your opponent. Which is why Plow is a lot better for vertical strike, because you could just bring the blade up almost into a roof, especially if your sword foot, I guess, is forward. If your pommels, the hand on your pommel should almost always be the foot that you have forward when you're going into a modified roof. So if you're changing from Plow to a modified roof to get your vertical strikes in, it's a lot more effective going from Plow. Your vertical strikes are going to come a lot from Plow. You're going to transition into either a full roof or into a modified roof and then throw your shot. A lot of striking involves a lot of stance change as well. Any questions, Noah?
Not yet.
Okay. So you have strikes and blocks from the roof. Actually, I missed one. Repost from Plow. So a repost from plow, you could do the same repost as you did from ox.
Beth is
You
not
can
quite
bait
in the frame.
Do what?
Uh,
Oh, she's not in the frame?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can do the same repost from plow as you can do from ox. You start from your plow, and as they throw to your offside, you throw that outside block. Go ahead. And as they stick it, you take that step, and you want to reorient the blade as you're bringing it around to where the edge of your blade is hitting them right above their hips, right below their ribs. Like the side of the kidneys, basically. And you want to make sure that you're turning your sword in your hand, because if you throw that block and you're using a flat-bladed weapon and you just bring it straight down, you're going to hit them with the flat, which doesn't count at all for a shot. That's another one of those things. If you've got an Omni blade, if you've got a round Omni blade, you can go from your plow, and you don't have to move quite as much arm-wise. You can literally just, go ahead. You can literally just from straight up to straight down. You don't have to worry about orienting the sword into a different way or crossing your arms. You can literally just go from straight up, straight down.
Special guest.
Special guest star, yes. My 6-year-old really enjoys this stuff. You have a lot of blocks that you can do from your plow are going to block the total of your side, because the orientation of your blade is already in a block. If somebody throws a shot to your left side, all you have to do is move your sword up, hand still on your hip, or pommel still close to your hip. All you have to do is move your sword up, and you can block basically your entire left side. Same with your entire right side. You can either cross block, or you can take a step and throw a block from the different angle, or from the opposite angle. You can throw your low cross, or you can take that step and switch into a different plow and block your right side. So if you know the shot's coming from the right, you take that step and you have your guard all the way up. Then moving into your roof, there's 2 shots that we like. That it's the murder strike, which everyone loves, and the diagonal chop. So the difference between a murder strike and a diagonal chop are a murder strike cants the blade itself and comes down straight, and a diagonal chop cants the whole action, basically. You're going to, how do I explain that a little better? Your murder strike, you want the tip pointed at like a 15-degree angle off of your opponent, and you bring the pommel straight down their body. So from here, and that is a very hard shot. That is going to, if you put enough power into that shot, you're going to drag somebody to their knees. Cant your blade 15 degrees, pommel straight down their body in a straight line. Now, a diagonal chop is different because you want the entire orientation of the blade to be at like a 45, and you're going to bring it down at a diagonal. And that's mainly the sole difference. Is a diagonal chop is going to be more of a moving somebody into position or taking the arm or perhaps the shoulder. Your diagonal chop, diagonal chop, diagonal chop. A murder strike is going to be, well, now I've got them open, cant that sword, and make them know that you were there. A lot of blocks that you could do from your roof. Roof isn't really good for blocks because your hands are above your head. So unless your hands are really fast, your biggest block is people knowing that if they get close, you're going to murder strike them. because if somebody gets close enough, fast enough, bringing your weapon down into a blocking position, you might as well have just been in plow from the moment they started charging. The only thing that roof has as a block is if you're doing a modified roof, you can block that shoulder, and you can block your off shoulder, or change to a different roof. But with your hands above your head for the roof, your best defense is knowing that your offense includes a murder strike. At least in my experience, people don't want to charge headlong into a murder strike. Reposts, there aren't any viable reposts that I have found from the roof because all of your attacks are coming from above your head. Nobody is throwing shots above your head, so there's nothing that you can block to move into a repost. Unless somebody's just 9 feet tall and they're throwing shots at your shoulders from that height. I mean, you're not reposting anything up here. Any questions, Noah?
No.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and transition into some footwork now. And then after footwork, I've got a couple of Pell drills and footwork drills that I like to do that really gets people prepared for using a great weapon in F-Guard, using a great weapon effectively. Moving into footwork, we have the left ox. You want to call your stance based on the foot that's facing backward. So a left ox has your left foot back, and a right ox has your right foot back. So transitioning from a left ox to a right ox is taking that step forward and having your right. You want to have your left foot perpendicular to your blade and your right foot parallel with your blade. So as you transition, you want to take that step forward and move your right foot perpendicular to your blade, left foot parallel to your blade as you bring your sword across to the other side. So from the front, this is kind of what that looks like. You'll see the back foot here doesn't really leave the ground. It kind of pivots off of the ground. And then you want to repeat that for transitioning from your right ox to your left ox. You want to take that step back and pivot your foot to where it's pointed straight towards your opponent. So left ox from left plow doesn't require any real footwork. You can incorporate footwork if you're making lateral moves from one direction to the other in the middle of a fight, but just the transition from your left ox to your left plow and from your right ox to your right plow doesn't incorporate any footwork. You're literally just going from your ox down to your plow. To tell you what I mean about like lateral movement, lateral footwork, if I'm in an ox, say I'm in left ox and I need to transition to left plow and I've got 2 or 3 opponents and I'm trying to move laterally, I can go from my left ox, I could take a step and move into left plow to kind of force my opponents to one direction or the other. You almost always want the blade of your sword on the side of your body where your opponent's sword is going to be, unless you are trying to bait them or do some kind of gambit that involves a repost. you're going to want your blade on the side of your opponent where their sword is, because that's all of your blocking surface. You don't have a shield generally when you're fighting with a great weapon. So if you're going from left ox to roof, that again, it doesn't require a lot of footwork, but it requires just enough footwork to make it different than changing from ox to plow. So from ox to plow, like I said, doesn't require any footwork. But changing from ox to roof, because you have to reorient your body, requires just a little bit of footwork. You're going to bring your foot forward. You still want it perpendicular to your sword point, but you're going to bring your foot forward. And instead of being perfectly perpendicular, it's going to be off at like a 45-degree angle. So from perpendicular to a 45-degree angle. Same thing moving from a right ox to a right or to a roof. You're going to keep your left foot facing your opponent, and you're going to bring your sword point up and your back foot forward like that. 45-degree angle. And then from plow to ox is the same. From roof to plow is a little bit more difficult than from ox to plow, because you're changing not only the orientation of your sword, but the orientation of your body. So if you're in roof and you have to change to plow for a block, you're going to widen your stance, let whichever foot needs to go backwards for whatever block you need to do. If you're doing a left plow or a right plow, depends on how you're going to do your, which foot is going to move. So if you're doing a roof to a left plow, you're going to be in your roof stance, knees slightly bent, shoulder width-ish apart, 45-degree angle on the back foot, front foot facing straight at your opponent. And you're going to go from a little bit wider than 45 degrees. Your left foot is going to go slightly back behind your right foot. You want to be more of a straight line. That way your body cants away from your opponent. And you're going to bring your sword towards your hip. So from here, if you're in your roof and somebody throws a shot, or if you know somebody's going to throw a shot and you have to throw that guard, your foot's going to come back and you're going to be more of a straight line, body canted away from your opponent, into a plow, slightly then shoulder width apart. So from here to plow. Same thing if you're going to your right plow. From over, now your right foot is going to go behind your left foot, or your left foot is going to come forward. Depending on how close you are to your opponent and how much time you have before they get into striking range, you're going to have to determine which foot you're going to want to move. If you have a lot of time, go ahead and bring that left foot forward. If you have very little time, go ahead and bring that right foot back. That way you're moving as much of your strikeable surface away from your opponent as you can. You can also, if you're not afraid to do it, you could do a tiny hop. I used to do it a lot, hop fighting. From here, like say I'm in my left roof because my left foot is back and I need to go into a right plow, you can do a little hop, knees bent, jump about 2 inches off the ground, switch the orientation of your feet. You can also, using that, you can change the range of your fight. take a little segue here because that reminded me of something. If you can change the orientation of your feet very quickly without your opponent noticing, you can change the range of the fight and the range that you are able to throw shots with a great weapon. So let's say I've got a sword and border right here, and I'm in my roof, right foot forward. Or let's say I'm in a roof and my left foot is forward. He knows that my shot can only come to right here, right? Now, that is, unless I'm going one-handed, as far as I can throw my murder strike. I can barely hit him with the tip. And if I throw shots at him, he's going to know that from this range, I can only hit him with the tip with that murder strike. So if he stands slightly out of range, or if he prepares that block, he knows that I'm no threat throwing that shot. But if he's got a shield and I throw that murder strike and he brings his shield up and I do that hop at the same time, distract him with the shot, change the orientation of your feet at the same time. Now, the second time I throw that shot, I've got a whole extra 7 or 8 inches of striking surface that I can hit him with. You can also throw that little lean in. So, changing the orientation of your feet. As you throw your shot, you want the shot to connect at the same time as your feet are changing orientation. And then immediately throw that other shot. You can lean or you can not lean. It's really up to you. But from right here, my right foot is not coming any closer to my opponent than my left foot already is. Throw that murder strike, I can barely hit him. I've got like, from right here, like 3 inches of tip, unless I'm fighting with one hand. So I can hit him with just that 3 inches. So if you hit him, and immediately throw that other shot, now you have all of that extra striking surface. You can also do that with a change of direction of your second shot. If I'm right here and he knows that I can only hit him with 3 inches of my tip, as you throw that shot with intent on that shield, make him block it, or her, make them block it, and then as you switch your feet, switch to the other side, and you've got all of this blade that you can hit their shoulders with. That's my little segue because I reminded myself of rapid foot switching. I don't do it a lot anymore because I'm a bigger guy, but if you're little and spry, try it out.
Or if you're little and spry at heart.
Or if you're little and you try real hard. Or if you're big and you try real hard. This is kind of a try-hard sport. All right, and then you have along footwork. You have footwork that you could do to create shot opening. Beth? Sword and board. If you're fighting somebody with sword and board, you can go from like a plow, and I basically have no striking surface because her shield blocks a lot of it. But if I like poke at the shield a little bit and then take that step, I can throw shots to that hip. By opening that striking area by taking a simple like 2-foot step. You can also, from ox, if you take that step, you can transition as they go to block. You hit them with that once, and then as they go to block, you just go straight down on that arm. Bam. So from here, you take that step. You can also counter step or stutter step. So if they know, if you fought somebody once or twice and they know a lot of what you're capable of doing with a greatsword, and you post up into ox and you take that step and move your sword, they're immediately, like she did, move their shield. But what she does by moving her shield to block that arm is now this shoulder is open and I can see it. You can do that with the same step, or you can do it with a stutter step. If I post an aux and I take that, oops, shit, found a hole. If I take that step and then immediately reconnect or recorrect my posture, as she adjusts because I recorrected my posture from that step, right? You could bring that down and force her into a block, or you can force her into something that allows you to get your repost. So from aux, take that step, and as she rotates, you can immediately reset, strike that hand, and then as I follow through, now she goes and throws her shot. Sword's mean. It's a cross game sword, I'm sorry. Apparently my sword is mean. So you can use a lot of your footwork to open up several shots, especially from like aux. From plow, you can use your footwork and you can switch from two hands to one hand. If you bring your tip up a couple of times and hit that sword or hit the edge of that shield, you can. No, you did exactly what I wanted you to do. I just didn't want to punish that shoulder. You can hit that. You can hit that shield, and then as you take that step and they lean straight down onto that, you can also use just the back hand for that tip control and throw shots to that hip. Which also helps if you, I forget what the fencing term for it is, but you could throw your front hand out, like look at the bird. From your plow, throw your front hand out, and as they look that way, throw that stab, or if they turn their shield, even better, like, boom. That guy's real proud of his car. That's the only problem living on a main street.
Is he still out there? Not just going by?
Do what?
I guess he's not leaving. He's just hanging out.
No, he's like right beside my house. Just in the street, blocking traffic, revving his car. So yeah, I forget what the fencing term for that is, but you can use your front hand on your sword as a distraction. You could bring your sword out or bring your front hand out, and as they are distracted by it or as they turn, you can use your back hand to throw that stab. Boom. Just silly little things that you can do with a great weapon. A lot of the footwork that you're going to use while you're throwing shots, you've already seen as I've worked on the Pell or as I've fought my assistant. You're going to be doing a lot of lateral steps and a lot of forward and back steps. So from your roof, you're going to take that step, and that's how you're going to throw your diagonal. You don't really step a lot. You can step forward as you throw your murder strike, but you don't have to. From your aux, you're going to be bringing your sword up and taking that step out instead of taking a step forward, like from your roof. From the roof, you take that step forward, and that's how you get the power generated for your lateral, for your, diagonals, not laterals. And then from the aux, you take a step out into the opposite, or to the side that you're swinging at, take that step out, and that's how you're generating power for your horizontal shot. Taking that step away from, or with the shot. Same thing with the plow. You can take a step with your forward foot. Any questions, Noah?
Not yet.
Okay, so that brings me to my last part, which is drill. A lot of things, well, I like to do Pell drills with my great weapon the same way I do Pell drills with my short sword. It's just post up in my guard, and I'll throw a shot. 1, 2, reset. 3, reset. 4. And I want to build the muscle memory that from right here, this is where that shot comes. Right there. Boom. 2, 3. And I'll do that probably 40 or 50 times per shot. Same thing with this side. If you're switching, start slow, like half speed that you're going to be throwing the actual shot, and then you want to gradually speed it up until you're throwing shots as fast as you would normally throw them. And when you're hitting accurately with shots that you would throw at a standstill, then you start adding your footwork. You take a step back from your opponent, from your roof, take your step forward, shot. Step forward, shot. Step forward, shot. Pelling for a greatsword is a lot like pelling for a polearm or any weapon for that matter. You're going to want to start with your basic shot without footwork. You're going to throw them until you are competent throwing them. You're going to throw them probably 40 or 50 times for a week. And then you're going to start to feel comfortable. And then you bring the speed up. And then you bring the speed up again. And you're going to pel on your target until you are comfortable throwing shots at the speed that you would throw them in a real amp guard fight. And then once you're comfortable throwing them at the speed that you would throw them in a real amp guard fight, then you start throwing footwork into it. You can start throwing separate angles into it. Pelling is really the same for every weapon, I have found. I'm sure Glenn is going to message me later and tell me that's a big no-no. But for me personally, I pel the same way with every weapon. I start with the fundamentals of that shot, and then I progress forward until I can throw that shot comfortably, regardless of the orientation of my opponent or of myself, including my own footwork. There's an old verbiage, there's an old adage, I guess, that a amateur trains until they get it right and a professional trains until they can't get it wrong. That's what you want to be doing when you're pelling. You want to train a specific shot at a specific orientation until you can throw that shot with your eyes closed and it's going to land exactly where you want it. And when you get to that point, that's when you start speeding up and you start throwing it faster. You start changing the dynamic of your shot by adding footwork. But you want to accomplish those fundamentals until you can't get them wrong before you start moving into stuff like that. And then you could do footwork drills along with your great weapon. You could do your footwork drills even without your great weapon. You could do footwork drills. Hold your hands up, transition. Hold your hands up, transition. Hold your hands up, transition. You can do that while if you have a standing desk, I would do that probably all day long if I had a job that afforded me a standing desk. Just stand at your desk and hands in front of you, just side step back and forth, forward step, change your foot orientation. If you could do it without typing, you can put your hand motion in on it too. Throw your hands up, transition into your roof, and then bring your hands down, transition into your plow, transition into your aught. You could do kind of a great weapon stance kata. I don't know what else you could call it, but you could start from one stance and transition all the way around full circle. So you start with your left foot back roof, transition into your left aught, transition into your left plow, transition into your right aught, or right plow, transition into your right aught, transition into your right roof. And you could do that and then reverse it, change it up. That's basically how I did it. There's no real footwork drills that I have found that aren't incredibly complicated and written in German. But if you fancy that, you can definitely look them up. That's the ones that I did though, were the greatsword kata, changing stances and just standing in place, even without my sword. If I were at work, like on a lunch break or on a 15-minute break, change your stances bring your hands up. Do everything you can to promote muscle memory with or without your weapon in your hand. And that is going to afford you a lot of extra time that you don't have to actively think about something in real time when it matters. If you're in an amp guard fight and you have practiced a transition with or without a sword 500 times, your body knows, hey, this is what I need to do to transition. As your brain tells it, hey, the sword's coming this way, you need to block.
Got nice cars on your highway.
Yeah, I think he's just driving up and down the main street that I live on, revving his engine. Thursday night in Amarillo, Texas. So
he wants to be involved.
He does. He wants to be involved. He knew I was going to be filming today.
Yeah, I would say you were talking about taking your time to bring this speed up. And when I've been successful at pelling, a lot of that has been really forcing myself and reminding myself that for at least the first couple weeks of doing this, I'm going to pay attention only to the motion without any speed. Just get the motion right.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a lot slower and a little more painful than I think people are expecting. Not physically painful, I think just like very, very slow process.
It's tedious, and
yeah.
I have noticed a lot that amp guarders don't like tedium. If they could have a personal montage of them practicing and then they came out on the other side of Warlord, everyone would choose that option. A lot of people don't want to spend, 5,000 hours pelling and 10,000 hours fighting to get to that point. But that's generally what it takes, is 10,000 hours of actual sparring and fighting and tournament fighting and almost as many hours pelling. And you're going to want to start slow. It's going to be boring. But if you want to excel at something, you need to break it down to its basic point and break it down to half speed. Throw it at half speed until you can't miss. You could be talking to somebody over here and you're throwing this shot and you can't miss that shot because your body knows, hey, this is where this shot lands. You don't even have to pay attention to it anymore. And that's when you start going 3/4 speed. And when you get it to where you can't miss that shot, even at 3/4 speed, throw it at full speed. And when you got it where you can't miss at full speed, throw in some footwork, throw in some fakes, throw in a little cross shot. And then when you've got all of that down, I mean, that's when your body kicks in the middle of a fight, when somebody changes things up on you and your brain doesn't have the time to react, but your body does, because your eyes will see it. Your brain might get bogged down. Everybody talks about the mental blue screen of death. The human brain can only interpret so many things at once. So if somebody's throwing, a triple fake at you, your body will take over. When your eyes can see it, your body will take over a little bit, and you will be like, your body will be trained to throw that shot in a state of heightened duress, I guess. You want to break it down and get to the point to where you can't fail, and your body will take over after that.
Well, that's flow state, right? That's what you're looking for.
That's what?
Flow state. When you're in the zone, flow state.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've heard it called that, actually. My headphones died, so now I've got to listen to the phone I'm recording on. I've never heard it called the flow state, but that's exactly what it is. When your mind can't catch up, but your body takes over. When you're in the zone and everything is just flowing. That's a good word for it. Flow state. This is my Q&A section, I guess. I don't really have anything else for my class. It's 8:18, so I guess that made the hour and 15 minutes. Did we have any questions?
I don't have any questions for you right now. I didn't handle. There are some questions around how much you may or may not have been abusing your man of arms by stabbing him with your cross guard. But
I mean, He knew what he was getting into.
I was a little more politic in my answer, but sure.
I'll see if I can find that video. I also flip him over and murder strike him at one point. It's I fight my man at arms a lot meaner and dirtier than I would fight any of y'all, because he likes it, he can take it, and he wants to learn. So
Sure.
generally, unless somebody approaches me and says, "Hey, I want you to fight me without holding back," I don't do like pommel strikes and cross guard stabs and getting you tangled up, flipping you over, and murder striking you. That's not how I fight. Generally, I've had some moments playing Dagger here where I have pushed people off of their feet, because you can cross check people with your weapon. So they would shield rush me, and I would go from a plow up to a half sword and push them off of their feet and then strike them. That kind of thing's acceptable in certain games, though. I don't expect to have to do that to anybody in Amp-Guard.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I guess if there's no pending questions, then I'm going to go get some pizza with my kids.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, Noah. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. If you have any questions on great weapon fighting or polearm fighting or any of the things or any of the types of fighting that I'm particularly good at, you can find me on Facebook, Zander Blackstone. Feel free to shoot me a line, ask me any questions. I'm basically always on there. If not, I'll answer it in the morning.
Thank you so much for taking the time to present to this afternoon. This is a style I don't think I've had a chance to, in all these years, to sit in on a great weapon class. So this is my first chance. I've sit in on a few polearm classes, I think yours in particular. This is the first great weapon class I've had a chance to see after all these years. It's fascinating. I think the most interesting part is how you really brought some of that tall hopper to life. Because I've looked at this fight several times over the last several years, but it's difficult.
See, I really like teaching great weapon in particular in person, because you can get your class involved. You can get up close and personal and really show them how to grind with a two-handed weapon, because there's certain nuances that I can't catch on film, or that I don't think of on the spot with just my printed out page trying to present online. There's certain things that you think of when somebody makes a certain motion in a class. So I definitely would like to be able to teach this in person at SKBC. I think with the frequency that we get cross gamers showing up to SKBC now, it would be a good class to have. In fact, that's why Isaac came to me and asked me if I would like to teach it.
Sure.
Because we get a lot of cross gamers now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so as everybody heard, if you really want to get a hands-on with this, you got to catch Zander in person. If you really want to get handsy, let him know he can flip you around, apparently.
Do what?
I'm making a joke, Zander. I'm saying students can come ask if they want to get wrestled with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Only DAG students and Bell students can ask me.
Okay.
Amp-Guard students, they don't get the hands-on treatment.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Zander.
Thank you. Y'all have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.